And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. We got a great show in store for you. We're going to actually take you halfway around the world to the crisis in Ukraine and in Russia, and we're going to discuss what's happening there with somebody who just returned. So I'd like to introduce Vox, who's a filmmaker and who has gone to this region of the world and told us quite a lot about it. Welcome to the show, Vox.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so tell what you were just recently in Ukraine?
I just got back a week and a half ago.
Well, tell me what's your interest in the area first.
Well, I was invited over there to lecture at university on certain topics, in specific American fascism, actually, was the main topic. And also to build interest in a media channel that I'm interested in developing to try to counter the propaganda from the American networks, the bankrupt American networks.
Okay, the bankrupt American networks. That's why we're here on Let Them
propaganda
Talk.
networks.
Right, there we go. We're trying to have an alternative to that. That's why we call it Let Them Talk. Now, I've had one program previous to that where we discussed what was happening in Ukraine, trying to figure it out, and we talked a lot about gas and about fracking and about it seems that there's a business issue here over controlled natural gas and markets and things like that.
It's more than that, but yeah, it's
more than that.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, I'll try to run through a quick history of it before we get into the
details.
It was annexed, the territory that I went to, the Crimea, which is the part that's right now in dispute, was annexed by Catherine the Great around 1783, and and this is what gave Russia, finally, a superpower status, in a way, back then, in whatever you would have called it, because they finally had a warm water port for their navy, and this is the only way you can project power, and so it's been like this for as long as this nation here has been in existence, since the founding of the United States here.
Crimea is in part of Russia.
Been part of Russia, yeah, and it was there was Tartar population there, Tartars who were left over from the Golden Horde, Genghis Khan's disciples there, the Golden Horde, and there was basically a slave trading area. It was the center of the slave trade between the Middle East. Yeah, so
that's interesting. There was a slave trade. I mean, I know about this. I've read about it. Our viewers might not know that, but there was extensive slave trade. The
most extensive for that part of the world, and this was occurring at the same time that we here in the United States were doing the slave trading, and but this had happened a long time prior, actually. Yeah, and. The place was originally settled by Greeks and Scythians and other groups,
local indigenous groups.
Ostrogoths even were there for a little while. So, you know, there's been a lot of people in and out of Crimea, and this is the place that I'm focused on because I kind of know what the United States is up to there.
Right.
Now all this is, what happens is the United States is meddling throughout the world. We know this. You know, they don't tell you about this on CNN. You know, they say just get your flag out and say I hate Putin. Is what they tell you. But actually, Putin's defending his people. He's defending his borders. He's defending his rightful sphere of influence there. And it would be tantamount to Russia coming over to say the Indian reservations and saying, look, let's give you surface-to-air missiles and AK-47s and M16, whatever they're things, and then you can liberate yourself because, you know, you're an indigenous people, you have rights, and so here's some terrorist fighting capabilities. This is what we're doing over there, and this is what we do everywhere.
That's interesting. So let's talk about Ukraine for a while, because we had this discussion earlier, and get me, if I'm wrong, tell me, but you seem to be saying that Ukraine really is not
doesn't exist.
A nation.
It was never a nation. It was carved out of the Russian territory at the end of the Ottoman Empire, at the end of World War I, and it was largely just
100 years ago this summer.
Yeah, and it was carved out by the German generals, von Hindenburg and others, as a way to get provisions for the German people, food and dairy and other minerals and stuff like that.
Right.
So it didn't exist prior to that. There was some talk about, the word has existed, but there's never been a nation. There's been a word, Ukrainian, which meant borderlands. That's all it really meant, and it was the borderlands of the Russian Empire. Kiev, of course, is the first city of Russia.
And isn't that where the Russian people, the Slavic people, got their start?
Yeah,
really
Kievan Rush it was called, and it extended all the way from Lithuania all the way down to north of the Black Sea.
Sure.
There. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So you were recently there. Can you tell us the cities, the areas you visited, and what you observed? And let's just start with a dispassionate description of what you observed, and then we'll get into its meaning.
Sure. Well, I just visited the Crimea because I've always been looking at that region, and I've always wanted to.
How'd you get there?
I took a plane from Moscow. Yeah. And
to Sevastopol, or what's the
you go into Simferopol is the center city. Yeah, Sevastopol is this city that's been a Russian military city for many years, just much like the way we have enclaves of military encampments in various other sovereign nations. That's what that was.
A military base.
And so I just it was a beautiful place. I drove my Daewoo, ultra mini 3-cylinder Daewoo car all over that place, and all over the hills and all over the smallest beaten paths, and really explored the entire coastline of this place. So I went from Simferopol up to the Azov Sea, and then all the way around because it's they call it the Crimean Peninsula. It doesn't look, it looks like this kind of shape, like that.
Almost like a diamond pendant.
Yeah, a little bit like that. And then I went all along this, all the way to through Kerch, and then to Yalta, and then to Sevastopol, and I saw just amazingly friendly people. No stress, no worries, no big military presence like they're reporting here. Not at all.
Do you see tanks on the streets?
No
or
tanks.
troops?
This is fictional. This is all fiction. They had some military disturbance they had some military presence in Sevastopol, but that's their city.
Yeah, it's
so I did see some troop carriers just leaving in the port of Kerch, but they're very small in numbers, and no police, no military on the streets until I went to the west side, and then I saw there was police that was on the streets from the main highway.
Sure.
But the police there are kind of like, they're not like battle hardened like we have here. They're not militarized, so they just look like common guys, and they don't even appear to have guns. So and they were not military. It was just police, and there was just a few of them. So basically, it was just business as usual. The people they voted in their own referendum, which they don't say in the media. They keep on forgetting to mention that the people actually voted in a unanimous.
Well, just to be devil's advocate, there's some history in the past of at least the way the propaganda has always gone, that a Russian election is sort of like the 2001 presidential election in the United States every time.
Not really, because you have largely it's a Russian population there, so it's largely Russian there, and. They don't want to have anything to do with this these Nazi fascist.
Yeah, we were talking about it. Let's get into that a little bit. Is that true? I mean, the propaganda we've heard from the other side is that these people from the Ukraine who want to liberate the Ukraine on behalf of the United States are, in fact, Nazis or fascists. I mean, is that hyperbole? I mean, is that just I can call my right-wing downstairs neighbor a fascist, but does it really make him one?
Well, I mean, if wearing the Totenkopf on your sleeve in a yellow band, which is the Nazis' SS insignia, is any clue,
that's usually a signal.
Yes.
That's a signal.
And usually, if they tattoo it on their chest, the Nazi swastika, that's kind of a clue that they might be sort of ultra.
I don't know if maybe I can ask our engineer if you could put up our phone number, and maybe we could get a call or two.
Absolutely.
If you have a minute, just to throw up the number and let's see. There's our number. Call in 212-757-1541. Pretty controversial stuff. I mean, you're standing up against all the New York Times, the Post, the Daily News.
It's a complete synchronized.
And here we're hearing something totally different.
It's completely different. You're being lied to on a massive scale.
All right. What do people tell you about their relationship with the Ukrainian government in Crimea? How do they? I mean, it's still, however you look at it, traumatic to switch allegiance from one country to another very suddenly like that. Or isn't it?
No, they're quite happy about it. I only met one person who was against it. I met one girl who believed the hype, believed the propaganda. She bought into it. But everybody else that I met and spoke to, because I specifically was there on a mission to explore and find out what was going on there, and they all said, no, we don't want to, we don't want to be, because the Ukrainians right now, the ultra-nationalist Ukrainians, are actually trying to limit the language of the Russian people spoken in their country. They want to make it a second language.
Is Ukrainian a separate language from Russian?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a different dialect, and the people I've spoke to said that the Russians can understand maybe a certain percentage. I don't remember what it was. Maybe they can understand 40% of the things that they're saying, and sort of vice versa. Kind of.
Sure.
Yeah.
I see. So, but okay. So, I mean, Stalin himself said that language and area and territory creates a nation. So, if Ukraine people do have their own language and they have a territory they live in, why aren't they a nation?
Well, because if you follow that principle, then the southern dialect people in the south there have a and the northern northern New Yorkers are so much different from everyone else. So then we would just have secessionist movements everywhere, or yeah. I mean, the bottom line is that this argument is used by the State Department and the CIA, the ruling class, as a means of just balkanizing the world to make them weaker.
Yeah, and that's pretty much, I mean, American foreign policy. I mean, even Stratfor, even the right-wing think tank Stratfor, when I read their analysis of the United States, they say right away the United States' goal since 1945 has been to create as many smaller countries out of larger countries as possible,
so that we can,
so that no large group of nations would be able to come together as did in World War II and World War I to threaten, as they threaten England, and they see the United States is in a way
that's the pretext.
Adopted the English.
The underlying subtext is though that if they're smaller nations, they're easier to dominate economically, because ultimately it's not that they're worried about some threat anywhere. It's just that they want more money. I think.
Right. And there is. I mean, is Russia? There was a time when Russia was the great superpower, the boogeyman, the most scary people in the world.
No, they're the nicest people. They're an old country, much older than us. Very nice people. There's no danger there. I didn't my whole time there, for my whole month there, I didn't have one negative moment.
How did we slip into the Cold War 50 years ago, and are we slipping into another one now?
Well, because the United States is worried about the growth of the Russian economy. They're worried about the people investing in Russia. And so one of the underlying themes that they're always doing when they're warning us about Russia is don't invest in Russia. So they're worried about Russia is strategically positioned good, and of course Russia sits on the Eurasian continent in a prominent position, and our geostrategic thinkers are going back to this Halford McIntyre thing from his plan of that this area of the world is the geostrategic pivot region, and whoever controls this controls the heartland of the Earth, and the heartland being the Eurasian landmass is what.
And it's sort of the English said that back in the 19th century, the Great Game, right?
1913, around there.
Right, they're going to come.
Brzezinski then took it over, that mode of thinking, that whoever controls Eurasia, that can then project that power and control the entire planet. That's the whole plan.
Right, I see. So now I thought that there's still both countries, Russia and the United States, between them, despite the fact there's been a tremendous amount of disarmament, still holds 3,000-4,000 atom bombs,
more than that.
Ready to go.
Ready
at any time, and then of course the potential to make thousands more, and refurbish them. And in fact, since 1991, pretty much Russian agents and American agents have had free reign over the nuclear facilities of both countries up to a point where they can see, supposedly, and they can observe what's going on. And despite all the problems that have happened, those agreements have continued on. It was like when they went out to Hanford and they check under, make sure they didn't connect up the museum, and they go, and the U.S. goes down to Orsk and sees all these places. Now, what? So is the world? People are worried about this. When Russia and the United States don't get along, people were nervous. I talked on the streets to people who were afraid. What does this mean? I mean, is there really a worsening of conditions with relations to the United States?
I don't think so. I think
that harken back to those days.
No, I think that
horrifying days.
I don't think so, because I think it's there's a class in the ruling class, these remnants of the neocons. That are horny for war. You know, they're horny for aggression. But the American people have already made it quite clear that they're not interested in a confrontation with Ukraine or Russia or Syria. They don't want it. They know it's a fake. So there's an uphill battle to stoke another war. And of course, this is all in benefit and in service to Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Carlyle. This is what it's all about.
And wasn't there recently, just I was reading today, there's been sort of a pullback. I mean, the Putin has asked the Congress in Russia to rescind the law giving him military power to invade Crimea. I don't know if you heard that. It was earlier today. So he's so there, and that was the steam is definitely going down.
Thanks to Putin, actually. No thanks
Tell
to
me a little bit. What do you know about Putin? I mean,
Putin's a great guy. He's
a great guy.
He is a great guy. He's an honorable man. He's got more honor in his toenail than the United States ruling apparatus and their political. The thing about it is that can we use expletives on this network or no?
Try not to. But
I'll try not to, but American senators and congressmen, as we all know, are corporate cocksuckers. That's what they do. They suck corporate dick all day long.
All right.
Okay. So Putin actually doesn't do that. He'll actually put, if you're a corporation, you don't behave yourself, he'll put you in jail, and he'll put a corporation in its place where it belongs. But the United States congressmen, they just sell us out to their corporate sponsors. So that's a big difference. That's why Putin's a more honorable man than.
Is this a new development, or would you consider yourself a Russian communist in the old school way?
No, I'm not a Russian communist. I'm not a Russian, and I'm not a communist.
That's interesting. So I just asked that because
I'm
is Putin a communist?
No, but he wants to have this Soviet republic established again. Not necessarily a Soviet socialist republic, but he would like to get more of the satellite states that have broken away maybe back on, because they're going to need it in the times to come. Now he's just a guy who's got his historical perspective in. I would give more credit to a guy who cares about his image in history books rather than a congressman or senator who's just trying to make a buck for himself, make a name for himself. So Putin is very much with his view on, how he'll be judged by history. A senator, as a congressman and a U.S. senator, they're not concerned about this. They're concerned about making a name, making a fast buck, and getting power.
Okay, well, our number has been on there, and we encourage folks to come in. 212-757-1541. There's got to be somebody out there listening who takes offense to something that's being said here. Come on and call in. Let's see what you feel about it, or maybe you're right. The feelings aren't that strong. Maybe Putin turned out to be not so bad. Now, I did have an opportunity to meet some of the women from Pussy Riot, and I really appreciate them. And I really can never say I like Vladimir Putin just for the way he treated them. And maybe
let me tell you a little bit about Pussy Riot, though. The new paradigm, the new methodology that we're using to go and weaken foreign nations and destabilize them is not the old traditional methods of bullets and bombs anymore. It's through social memes and sexual memes. So Pussy Riot is, what they did was not actually that challenging and difficult to do, to walk into a Roman a Catholic church over there, not a Catholic church, Orthodox church, and then just disrupt the proceedings. That didn't seem to me to be a very sophisticated thing. And it turned out that they were connected to a few groups. One is called Gulos, G-O-L-O-S, I think it is, and the other one is Otpor, O-T-P-O-R. And these are financed by the National Endowment for Democracy. I'm not sure about, I've been researching the connection between Outpour and Pussy Riot, but there is a connection between this other one. And so there's a possibility that what they're doing is, this new methodology is to rope your foreign leader into an untenable position via social means that are important to Western viewers, but that have not yet developed in the target nation. And so Pussy Riot might be one of these type of things that are on the vanguard of this new form of destabilization through social means rather than military.
So wait, you're not the first person. Let me just put this behind you. Now, what is it? What is the attraction of Vladimir Putin? I mean, what is it about him?
Because he's a guy who's there's one way you can tell you can judge a leader by how much his people either like him or don't. He's overwhelmingly liked, and funny, he's liked by the young populations like him. So,
is that because he takes his shirt off and goes hunting and rides a horse?
No, it's not at all. It's because people aren't stupid over there. They are a little bit more in touch, and they can see that Russia's being set up. And they appreciate a guy who's actually defending Russia. And they know that, Putin's not filling his pockets. Putin's not rolling around on a 400-foot yacht like our allies in the Gulf.
I was going to ask you about the Middle East, too, about Syria. Since you were in that region and you're in Russia as well.
Assad, Putin are much more honorable men than these, what they're called, what they're doing here, these American senators.
And how about ISIL and ISIS and all this stuff that's happening?
ISIS looks a lot like a covert U.S. insurgency. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, because you follow. Who does it play into? It plays into us. Oh, ISIS is there. Well, we better bring our military over there again. And while we're over there, let's take care of Assad over in Syria too.
212-757-1541. I can't imagine there's not somebody sitting out there who wants to call in and ask a question. No, but okay, let's go on. Tell us a little bit.
Too much of a match for them.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the what is the lay of the land? So it was peaceful. You didn't see any sign of any sort of military activity. Nothing looked like anything we heard about in the media.
Nothing. That was all fiction. What they do is they amplify. They get a few pictures of some military.
Outside of the Crimea, what's been happening? It's been a little, because there has been planes have been shot down, helicopters have been shot down, people have been killed. Although it seems to be calming down a little bit now, and there is some sort of Ukrainian, pro-Russian movement and is there the possibility of civil war in that region?
Well, of course, that's the whole goal. Is to, it was started by the United States. They are the ones who, Victoria Nuland admitted it at a conference where she was talking about how she was glowing for her love for Ukrainian democracy. It was a Chevron's logo right behind her, while it was the American flag on one side, the Chevron logo. So she should have at least maybe taken the Chevron logo down before she started gushing about how much she was into Ukrainian democracy. And she let the cat out of the bag at that particular meeting. That the U.S. had financed the opposition to the tune of $5 billion in the Ukraine. So when you give Ukrainian thugs like Chani Bach and Svoboda Party and right sector Nazi wearing,
when you say that they actually sort of have allegiance towards the former Nazi leader of Ukraine,
Stefan Bandera. They carry signs of Stefan Bandera.
Who is Stefan Bandera?
He was the Nazi collaborator. You see, Ukraine was dominated by the Soviet Union, right? So when the Nazis started adventuring around in 1941, they saw it as an opportunity really to ally with the Nazis maybe and then get away from the Soviet Union or something like this,
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so, but...
That was this guy Stefan Bandera, right?
Yeah, Stefan Bandera was this leader. He looks like he belongs in ad for the Hair Club for Men.
What happened to him in the end?
I don't actually know what happened. I think he was killed, but I don't actually know that.
And so there's folks who still uphold his...
Yeah.
Now, in a country that lost 30 million dead in World War II, by a German advance under the leadership of the Nazis, to go around with pro-Nazi regalia is,
not good.
Up
but
there.
There's enough of that around. But again, if the United States gives $5 billion to these organizations to promote that, these people are poor, and so hell, give me $5 billion, and I'll tattoo, and so maybe not exactly. Maybe I'll do it with washable ink or something, but still,
They'll do it for. I see. So you're saying that a lot of this, even the Nazis, everything is sort of some sort of plot. You think
they were around before, but they have been emboldened now because they know the message is loud and clear. The United States supports you, and that's what we're doing. And this is what's going to happen in Crimea. I've been studying this deep. And they're going to say, oh, the Tartars, you know, those poor Tartars. There's a few Tartars there, the Islamic Tartars, you know, Sunni Islam. And they'll say, oh, the Tartars. And now you see in all the media, you see a bunch of articles coming out, oh, what are we going to do about the Tartar question? And of course the result will be, well, we're going to have to give them Stinger missiles and funding and stuff. So they're going to do the next wave of terror.
Right.
Yeah, so it's easier to take taxpayer money.
Now, I thought that the U.S. and Russia were basically facing the same problems.
No.
Al-Qaeda and
the U.S. is behind it and Russia is defending against it. So basically, it's easier for a wealthy nation to just pay Islamic terrorists to create terror on our target nations than it is for the target nations to defend against that. So it's going to be very difficult for Putin to defend against all this terrorism that we're going to be supporting. It hasn't happened yet, but in 1 year, within 1 year, you will see the Tartar uprising, I promise you.
Are you working on a film right now about this experience?
No, I'm going to work on a media channel to sort of, through animation and real news, to reach out to young people, to get them a little bit more active, to just break the grip that the cliches have on their minds.
Do you have a website or anything?
VOXNEWS, Vox News, one word, .com. Not to be confused with Vox.com, which is General Electric's new propaganda channel. This is Vox News. I've been around for 20 years. They just got started. They stole my name. Yeah.
VoxNews.com.
Yeah.
All right, Vox. And, okay, a minute and a half. Do you have any hope in this situation? I mean, you've laid out some things that are pretty, frightening. Is there any hope in it?
Well, I hope that the Russians will be able to defend against the onslaught of terrorism that's coming their way. I hope that the people of the world wake up. I hope that young people start to become more active than they are, which they're not active at all. They're sort of apathetic, and I hope people wake up, basically.
Right. And so you're not this is not about the Soviet Union or restructuring the Soviet Union or making a new Soviet Union. This is about.
I'm not a communist. I'm not a Russia. Yeah. I love America. I don't like Washington. I think they're the problem in the world. They're the enemy of the world. Right. So I'm a real American. So I'm trying to fight Washington.
In that realm, the last 20 seconds, what does Russia represent in relation for Americans to this corporate?
Russia is the last great white population. That's not a racial comment. That's just a reality. So they are. We have a commonality between us and the Russian people. We don't have any problems with the Russian people. All our problems are artificial, and they're created by our ruling class and our government. So
very interesting. Okay, so VoxNews.com. Thank you, Vox, for joining us and having these words. I know you have to have courage to say these things, so I'm glad you did. And we let them talk. Welcome to Let Them Talk. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Nice. Well, good.